Are we on? Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first episode of Thomas Reacts here on the 360 Experience on YouTube. My name is Thomas Mabaso, guys, and I'm very excited to be with you today. And I'm very excited about the topic that we are about to have today. So, President Cyril Ramaphosa went to Paris in the new global summit where they've met as well leaders and they discussed issues that are affecting the world. And as we all know that the war between the Ukraine and Russia is been the main topic everywhere in the world. So President Cyril Ramaphosa went to Paris and he took some of the time that was given to him to pass remarks and say some of the things that African president have not been able to say. I'm saying this because if we look at the trend from now, maybe to 20 years back, African countries have been treated as lackeys, they've been treated as dogs, basically. So President Cyril Ramaphosa went to Paris and he took the opportunity that was given to him in front of every single world leader, and he gave the most powerful speech that I've ever seen before. This is the most powerful speech that I've ever seen a president of Africa give, and I must say that people are really happy about this speech because last week the speech was trending all over the place, but I felt like it's still important for us to push this message out. It's still important for us to repost this video because I know there have been a lot of people who have not been able to see what President Ramaphosa was speaking about. And as Africans, every single person that I know that has seen this speech has been impressed with President Cyril Ramaphosa, especially South Africans. South Africans have been very happy about what President Ramaphosa has been saying because we know that in August there will be a BRICS summit that is due to be held here in South Africa, and we also know that the elephant in the room is President Putin, the president of Republic of Russia, because South Africa as a country, they have signed with the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court. So the International Criminal Court has issued out a warrant of arrest for Vladimir Putin. So this is what has been happening right now, and everyone is interested to see what's going to happen. People are just anxious to see whether Vladimir Putin will come, because if it were up to me, I would allow Vladimir Putin to come, because if he does not come, it means that his enemies are winning. And at the same time, if he comes, there might be legal consequences that South Africa might suffer because they've signed with the ICC. And if the ICC issue out a warrant of arrest, they will have to arrest Vladimir Putin. So it's going to be very interesting next month during the BRICS summit. So guys, before I say a lot of things, I want us to go straight to the video, and I'm sorry to warn you right now, because I'm going to interject wherever I feel like I need to talk about whenever I feel like I need to make some remarks. So this is Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, the president of a failed state, because we know what's been happening in France. And it's very interesting that France right now, as we are speaking, is burning. France is burning, and we're going to make a reaction to that. And this is President Macron introducing President Ramaphosa.
Rendez-vous est pris pour l'Amazonie. J'ai peut-être donné la parole à Cyril Ramaphosa avant de conclure.
I mean, like, if Macron knew what Ramaphosa was going to say, I don't think he would introduce him with such a big smile, man. Ramaphosa is about to kill this thing, man.
Thank you very much, President Macron. Let me start off by saying, President Lula, don't worry, when we have the BRICS meeting, the issue of currency is top on the agenda. So we are going to discuss it.
Bruh. This is insane. And you can look at the smile on my president, bruh. Like, I am about to piss these people off, man. And he knows that the issue of currency is such a huge issue because he spoke to, particularly to President Lula, because he knew that President Lula recently went to China and he told Xi Jinping that, okay, guy, between the trades between Brazil and China will no longer be done with US dollars, will now be done with yuan. So President Cyril Ramaphosa is already telling these people that, guys, I'm about to torture you, because this thing of currency, we know that since the world has been trading with dollar, we know that Americans have been using the dollar as a weapon. So the BRICS is about to break everything down, because BRICS is offering countries a new alternative to trade, guys. Let's go. I know that I am so excited about this speech, because this is the most greatest speech. Like, guys, I'm 31 years old. I have never seen a speech like this. I know there are people who might be older than me who have seen better speeches, but as far as I'm concerned, as far as I've been interested in politics, I have never seen a speech like this. This is the most beautiful speech that I've ever seen being given by President Cyril Ramaphosa. I will never forget this speech, ever.
President Macron, I just want to start off on a very positive note in terms of what I think is evolving here. I think there is consensus that is clearly embraced by everyone that we need to address climate and poverty because they go together. There's a nexus. And as it were, we need to burn the candle on both sides. So that's important. So that's agreed. And we all recognize and accept that we need capital at scale to address the key challenges that many countries in the world face, particularly the developing economy countries. And we also would be agreed that there needs to be more cooperation and coordination between your development banks, multilateral development banks, and the private sector. There needs to be coordination so that there is no fragmentation, which you kept talking about. But I think what is important to many of us is that there should be solid consensus on the reform of the financial architecture of the world. Because without that reform, the dreams and the objectives that we have to address our challenges will not be realized. And those reforms need to touch on a whole range of issues. Mr. Mo Ibrahim yesterday even spoke about something that we may think is insignificant, that the boards of directors of your multilateral institutions are not made up of independent directors. They are largely internal people or shareholders. So that in itself, for us, is an important reform. We also need to look at the distribution of the special drawing rights. I find it a bit difficult to be told that this is set in the rules and it will forever be like that, and that it's either you get 0 or you get 34 billion. In our view, this is not a zero-sum game. It's a game where we all need to be dealt with equity in an equitable manner. And there is a need for reform in that regard as well. And the other important thing for this to happen, it will help us.
But I think the president knows that. You can see by the faces of the other world leaders, especially the Western leaders. You can see that they are not happy. You can see them in the eye that they are not happy, because what Cyril Ramaphosa is essentially saying is that, guys, let's reform this whole thing so that we can all get equal opportunities. This whole thing of Africa going to these certain countries to beg it's not going to work. So Cyril Ramaphosa is starting to touch on important issues.
Not to participate as unequal cousins in these institutions. It will help us to participate fully, and so that we don't have a sense that we are beggars, that we are being dealt with out of generosity. I think it's important in the new era that the world is in now that there should be a good measure of equality among sovereign nations. You know, recently, 7 African countries decided to go and put a call for peace to Ukraine and to Russia. And we raised a number of issues. Zambia was represented, Comoros was represented, Republic of Congo was represented, Senegal was represented, Uganda, as well as South Africa. So we were all represented, and Egypt as well. So we were all at one, that even as we were going to address an issue of the war which has had a negative impact on the African continent, which is the rise in prices for food, rise in prices for fertilizers, we were clear that we are not going there as beggars. We're not going to ask for a favor to both Ukraine and Russia. We were going there to say, open up the Black Sea Channel so that the grains and the fertilizers should go into the world market. So we were not on a begging mission, even as we are in great need as a continent.
And I think that is very important to mention that Cyril Ramaphosa and other African countries, they were not on a begging mission. This by the West. The African countries were not on a begging mission. We are not begging. We are not taking sides. I don't know why it is so hard for people to understand that Africa does not want to take any sides when it comes to war. Africa does not want to side with Ukraine, and Africa does not want to side with Russia. It's important to know that Africa wants this war to be resolved as soon as possible. And we know that the language that has been coming from countries that are supporting Ukraine, they don't want to see this war end. In fact, they want to see things get even more tense. So I think President Cyril Ramaphosa made it very clear that we were not there as beggars. We are not taking any sides. And right now, the Africa has been, and mostly South Africa, where I'm based, we have been forced to take a side. In Africa, we are not going to take a side. South Africa is not going to take a side. We are not going to side with Ukraine, and we are not going to side with Russia. The only thing that we want is to see the war resolved so that they can be, so that people can stop being killed. People have been killed out there. And the language that is coming from the United States is that we will keep giving Ukraine these weapons so that they can keep attacking Russia.
And all that. That should go to demonstrate that Africa should never be seen as a continent that needs generosity. We want to be treated as equals.
Yes.
Even in the multilateral institutions, we want to be treated as equals. And if our equity is at a low ebb, there must be ways in which that can be addressed. To us, this is very important. Our sovereignty is one of the things that we hold on dearly to. And we demonstrated that very clearly to both President Zelensky and to President Putin when it came to this issue.
But I think going to President Zelensky to talk about what's been happening right now, I think it's a waste of time. Everybody knows that Zelensky is nothing but a puppet. Everybody knows that. Zelensky is nothing but a puppet. So going to Zelensky to try to strike a deal with him is useless, man. It's useless. If you want to talk to Zelensky, you might as well take your flight, go straight to Washington, D.C. and speak to Biden. Because Zelensky is not even making the decisions there, man.
Even as there were suggestions that, yes, we can donate this, we can donate that, we said, we want you to release these grains and fertilizers to the world market so that the world can trade in these commodities and other issues we can handle in a different way. I wanted to make that point so that it should be understood where Africa has evolved up to. We want to be key players on the world stage, want to be key players even in the financial markets and in the MDBs. Now, these are the positive things. I do, Mr. President Macron, want us to address another issue which to us is a bit of a negative. You will have heard President Sisi talking about the 100 billion that was promised in Paris. President Sassou Nguesso yesterday as well also spoke about it at the dinner. Now there is that issue that a number of the commitments that have been made have not really been fully lived up to. But before I get into details, let me immediately say that we recognize the many initiatives that have been put on the table and
Macron is not happy, bruh. It's almost like it's like this bastard. I gave him the platform to insult me. This guy's not happy, man. You can tell on his face like he's not happy. You can see when the camera goes around these world leaders, like they are not happy, man. Cyril Ramaphosa is talking about things that they didn't even imagine an African president will talk about. So it's very tense in there, man. You can see President Macron, man. He's all red in his face, man. More red than what's been happening right now. This President Ramaphosa speech gave Macron so much anxiety, more anxiety than what's been happening right now in France, man. Shout out to Ramaphosa, man.
The number of countries here have done so. Germany has gone out of the way to put a number of initiatives, and the US has also done a number of things. But there have been times when we felt like we were beggars. I played a key role as chair of the African Union during the COVID period. We felt like we were beggars when it came to vaccine availability, when we felt we needed access to vaccines, and the Northern Hemisphere countries had bought all the vaccines in the world, and they were hogging them. And they didn't want to release them at the time when we needed them most. And we felt like we were begging. And at times it felt like they would just be droppings from the table, that yes, we will give you that and that. And let me tell you something that generated a lot of resentment. We resented that, and it got worse when we said we want to manufacture our own vaccines. And when we went to the WTO, there was a lot of resistance, enormous resistance. And we kept saying, what is more important, life or profits by big pharmaceutical companies? And that too, I must tell you now, generated and deepened that disappointment and resentment on our part, because we felt like life in the Northern Hemisphere is much more important than life in the global South. And these are issues that need to be addressed. And I'm glad that we're all seated here like this, because we've got to get to the heart of these matters and address them. Now I come to promises that have been made. And Chancellor Scholz was saying, we've got to walk the talk. Yes, we want to see the talk being walked. President Sassou Nguesso yesterday said at the dinner, $100 billion was promise per year. And he was saying,
I can only imagine what was going through this guy's head, man. Fuck.
I've never seen that. And many of us will testify that that $100 billion has never really been made available. And this should stand out as something that needs to be addressed. Because
Exactly, man. So Ramaphosa, what is saying is that, like, we are so sick and tired as Africans, man. We don't want anyone to donate to us. We don't want to be given things. Like, we don't want to be given things in jail. We want to be treated as equals. Africans, we are not beggars. We want to be treated as equals. Because if you remember, the whole COVID thing, man, was political. The whole COVID thing was political, man. So Ramaphosa is telling the truth, and it's just that Africans, I don't know that we are tough in nature or what, but Africans, due to the way COVID was being handled, it's very fortunate that many Africans did not die at such a huge scale, because we were not given enough equipment and vaccines and everything to fight COVID. So we have to thank our ancestors, we have to thank our metabolisms, because if it wasn't for that, I can just imagine the number of people who were dying in Africa. I remember in United States under President Trump, this is one issue that kicked Trump out of White House, man. COVID, so many people died in America, man. I think 500,000 or something under his administration. A lot of people died, man, during COVID, man, under Trump. And this is one issue that really kicked him out. And Trump understood that COVID was political. He understood that.
sometimes we sit at conferences like this.
Yeah,
and say,
useless
we'll make
conferences.
this available, and we believe you. We believe you, but now the tire must hit the tar. We must now see action flowing from that. Now, I want to then talk about something very practical. President Sassou Nguesso raised it yesterday. He said he would be happy if, flowing from this summit, we do something very practical on the infrastructure side. Having said that 600 million people in Africa do not have electricity, and yet we've got all the resources to generate electricity, particularly the mighty Congo River, and that there have been plans to build a number of power stations that will generate, in my calculation, up to 70,000 megawatts. And he said, and I want to speak in support of this proposal, that to prove that these summits are not summits where we just talk, flowing from the Paris COP as well as others, let us now put money on the table.
It will not happen. It will not happen. And I think President Ramaphosa is being very deceptive with this. I think he knows what he's saying. He knows that the Western countries will never assist Africans with something that's going to help Africa move forward. He knows that. So by telling the Western countries that, by telling these Western leaders, like, guys, let's do something practically, he knows that it's a bait. He knows that they will not do such a thing. And if they don't do such a thing, it reminds them of the impact and of the influence that China is having right now in Africa, man. He's reminding them that China is moving, guys, in Africa. China is building infrastructure in Africa. What have you done? Besides giving us empty promises, empty 100 billions, and calling us to these useless summits, what have you done? And I think he's saying this on purpose, knowing exactly that he's reminding them that, guys, especially when it comes to infrastructure, he's reminding them that you are not doing anything to improve the lives of Africans. And as Africans, like he mentioned when he started the speech, that President Lula, the issue of currency is something that we're going to have to talk about. He was essentially telling the West that, guys, we are ditching the dollar. No more the dollar. We will no longer suffer the sanctions of the dollar. We will no longer sit there and watch the United States use the dollar as a weapon against everyone and do nothing about it. Because if we look at Russia and China, they have started trading in yuan. China and Brazil, they have started trading in yuan. So who knows what's going to happen after this summit? What if after this BRICS summit, the whole countries that are in BRICS right now decide to trade in yuan? What's going to happen to the countries that have applied to be members of BRICS? I mean, guys, this is just a simple Google search, man. I think this is such a simple Google search. We can go online and search how many countries have applied to be part of BRICS. That is saying we are tired of trading with this dollar that has been used as a weapon against everybody. If you don't listen to us, we are hitting you with sanctions. In Africa, South Africa, Zimbabwe, it's your neighbor, guys. If you want to mess with us, go and see what's happening in Zimbabwe. And I think Cyril Ramaphosa is telling these guys, you have lost the plot. You have lost the plot. People no longer trust you. Africans no longer trust you. Africans no longer want to trade with you using your currency. And he's telling them in a clever way, in a way that he knows they will understand. Because by asking the West to actually do something concrete, it's actually exposing them, because everybody knows that the West will not do something concrete. Everybody knows. So guys, I want us to check countries that have applied for BRICS membership. I want to like these guys is simply going to show you that people did not just apply for BRICS membership because for the fun. No, mainly it's because of the dollar. People want to ditch the dollar. Even the countries that have been trading with dollar, even some of the Middle Eastern countries that they are now applying for, that applied for BRICS, that applied to join the BRICS. So I think he's essentially telling them that, like, I think this was a farewell speech. People, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was a farewell speech. So I want to see the countries that have applied to be members of BRICS. I don't know why I didn't open ChatGPT, because I think it would have done faster. More than 30 countries want to join BRICS. Just imagine if more than 30 countries stop trading with the US dollar. Guys, come on. This is the fall of the Western Empire, guys. Right in front of our eyes. So I want us to go through that list. Where are these countries, guys? Also note that I did not apply for any membership of this newspaper, so some of them I might not be able to access full information because I am not a member of them. Let me see. More than 30 countries have applied. So I want us to show something. The full list of countries that want to join BRICS. And I think what BRICS is offering to people, guys, it's appealing. People no longer trading with people. People have been tired. People no longer want to say things. I mean, I remember even President Macron went to China recently, and he told the European leaders that, guys, it's high time that we stop blindly following the United States, because I think he knows what might happen in Taiwan, and they don't want to do the same mistake they did in Ukraine. Mark Levin was very livid, guys. Mark Levin was livid. Americans were livid. They were even calling him a bastard, man. Discussing the expansion of BRICS Plus is currently underway and could be decided in the next summit on August 2023. The countries that have shown interest in joining BRICS are Algeria, Argentina, Bahrain, Egypt, Indonesia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Pakistan, Senegal, Sudan, Syria, Thailand, Tunisia, Turkey, Uruguay, Venezuela, and Zimbabwe. I think the first country that we need to approve is Zimbabwe, guys. And shout out to Benson Matinyagare. So, guys, what President Cyril Ramaphosa essentially says that, guys, you guys have failed to play a role in Africa, guys. You guys have failed to play an important role in Africa. The only thing that the Western countries know is that come and take these instructions. It's either you will listen to these instructions or we hit you with sanctions. And that's why they don't want, that's why they hate these BRICS. These Western countries, they hate BRICS. Because they can see even some of the countries that are in the Western, that are aligned with these Western countries such as America and the UK, they will start to pull back. Because everyone is essentially is sick and tired to listen to the United States. If you don't listen to us, you suffer the consequences. So if we no longer trade using your money, your currency, you no longer have a hold on us. And I think it's very clear. So let's continue with the speech, guys.
And collectively say we are going to address this mega project. A mega project which will in the end generate electricity for up to 12, 15 African countries all at one go. And this is a project that I think the multilateral development banks here working together, the call that you've made, President Macron, can actually fund. And where, as we rise from this,
it will not happen, guy. I think he knows it will not happen. Even this guy knows it will not happen. And that mega project, guess who's gonna do that mega project? Guess.
We should be able to say the Inga Dam is now going to be developed into the Inga Power Station, the one that President Sassou Nguesso mentioned, and the next one as well. If we can do that, then we as Africans will now be convinced that these summits are really meaningful. We will not.
Exactly. A mega project that's gonna enable 13 countries to get electricity all at once. Asking the West that, man, is like asking the Americans to make sense, man.
Now go home and say, you know,
this guy knows it will never happen. And I think they are more pissed with the fact that they know that this guy who is lecturing them, because what Cyril Ramaphosa is doing right now, he's lecturing them. He's giving them the lecture like kids. And they don't want, they hate that. And especially coming from an African president, they hate that. You can see the look on their eyes, they hate that. Don't come here and start telling us about the big projects that you want to do. We just want to take your minerals and you shut your mouth. You can see.
what? It's worthwhile going to these summits, coming to Europe, and to listen to all the promises, because they are willing to act on the promises. This is what President Macron, I believe, will be one of the most important outcomes. The reform of the financial architecture, as well as a practical project, infrastructure project that is going to add a lot of value. President Sisi and I have been talking about a railway from Cape Town to Cairo for years. We will leave that for the next summit, but the one on generating electricity and building power stations on the Inga Dam is the most important, that is immediate, that I believe needs to be addressed now. Let's get that done, and then we will be convinced that you are serious with the promises that you make. Thank you.
So guys, please tell me if you don't think that is the greatest speech ever by President Ramaphosa. Tell me if you don't think that is the greatest speech ever, guys. And I'm sorry for interjecting, because I had few things that I want to add, and I also have other few things that I want to add, but I will do another video on that. But please guys, tell me if you don't think this is the greatest speech ever seen by President Cyril Ramaphosa. If you want to see this speech without me interjecting, you can simply go on YouTube and check President Ramaphosa's speech in the new global summit in Paris. Then you will get the whole speech. So guys, thank you so much for being here with me today. And I will see you next time on Thomas Reacts. I know that this is not usual, and we also have interviews, guys. I know that a lot of you guys know that we do interviews, but we are also venturing into other forms of content. So your support will really be appreciated. Thank you so much, guys. My name is Thomas Mabaso, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.